Namaste, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday meditation. Beautiful inhalation, arriving at the home station. Namaste, namaste. It's a beautiful day. Let the breath come in. Let any toxins leave. Beautiful feeling. Attracts the healing. So yesterday we were focused on different afflicting emotions, tracking them back, trying to bust open what's going on with emotions and what happens in the mind when emotions arise, and how the mind hijacks the show and creates its own kind of mental emotions. All right, there's a whole nother track going on. So today, I thought I'd focus on solutions. If you want to go back and look more at the problem, yesterday's meditation is kind of an interesting navigation. But let's start with beautiful meditation, just relaxing the brain, relaxing the mind, relaxing the body. Just allowing whatever tensions from the day can just drop into the earth and stay. A higher consciousness takes you away. Breathing. 90% of our oxygen, 90% of our energy in our day comes from oxygen. 90% coming in through the mouth. 10% food, sunlight, and even the food has a ton of oxygen in it. So bringing in the oxygen. Inhaling the grace. Filling the lack. Resolving any incoherency. It's very interesting how the mind drives the charge. Right? It's very mind driven. So usually the main issue in meditation is with the mind. Because you're already fantastic. You're already the divine force. There's not much you have to do. You just have to realize that, right? That's what we are. So the problem isn't that. The problem is this interference experience that comes in. So first things first, we just sort of observe the situation. Observation. Abide inside, I like to say. Be the viewer, not the doer. And there's lots of space in that experience, right? We're just spacious graciousness is part of our consciousness. We fill our mind up with all sorts of stuff, but in fact, we're space beings, right? We're very expanded. We don't have any clue of how expanded we are most of the time, right? And so when we breathe in, we sort of get reminded of like, wow, look, I'm a spacious being. These thoughts that are contracting me, we can release them. So this is how I like to start. Just noticing whatever the mind might be doing. You can sort of talk to it quietly. Just suggest it. Bother you later, perhaps, or maybe take a back seat. Hello, everyone just joining. Namaste, namaste. Thank you for being here, helping create this beautiful resonance. I can feel it. I hope you can feel it. When there's a strong intention for meditation, it seemingly downloads out of nowhere. So we're just breathing. The mind will quiet down. Just have to give it a little time. Just feel the lightness coming in. As we move towards the hydrogen end of the spectrum, we become more alkaline. We leave disease behind. Disease is a compression function of acid base in the body. Even time gets crunchy. We slide into the acid continuum, right? We want to stay alkaline, perfect water pressure down the middle. Water is divine in that respect. You're 70% water. And when that water is invaded by emotions, thoughts, toxins, it doesn't feel good. Dr. Emoto did an experiment with children saying either loving things or toxic things to water, and then they froze the water, and the crystals reflected the frequency of the experiments. And so where the water was loved, beautiful crystals. Where the water was despised, crystals were breaking into horrible looking fragments. So when someone says something toxic to you, imagine what that's doing to your water body. Right? What's happening to your crystalline, liquid crystal structures. So it's good to, the countermeasure, right, is to press back against the toxins so that your 51% positive overrides the negative and you're in the plus. And we can do that in an instant, right? Just remembering who you are, essentially. Fastest track. There's a million other technologies to get to Oz. But the yellow brick road that goes straight through the heart, straight through right understanding, there you go. Just like Glenda, the good witch of the South, says, well, Dorothy, you always had the power. You just needed to know it. So we have this power. We are the supreme being in disguise, posing as you. So let's just bask in that glow. Beautiful feeling. So that's one of the great strategies for dealing with toxicity, upset, anger, angst, anxiety, rage, is to love the universe more than the negative charge that's happening. Just pure love never fails. But that's contingent on you being able to love yourself properly, right? This is everybody's issue as far as I can tell. Certainly my issue. It's so hard to love ourselves when we're acting somehow. We wonder, what are we doing? Where are these thoughts coming from? They just sort of pop out of nowhere. As I said yesterday, Dalai Lama says it's an infinite continuum of beginninglessness out of which hatred, anger, all these feelings and emotions exist. But then the beauty of his message is that we can do spiritual practices. We can do things to make these things not exist. Right? Negative charge can be deleted on a variety of fronts, whether it's done energetically. And then there's a great big list that I made here. Essentially, I basically wrote down everything that we can possibly do that just popped into my brain that works for what we're talking about. So that angels 51, demons 49. It's always going to be kind of close, right? Because shadow, light. Well, why don't I just read some of these solutions and just let's see how it rolls. So resting in the self, the supreme self, deeply gratifying experience. When in doubt, rest in the self. Whoa, number one. I think that's number one. That transcends everything. You can always rest in the self, even if you're on a Tokyo subway. Love in a billion ways. Well, maybe that's number one. Let your wounds enlighten you, not frighten you. So yesterday we spoke about how the mind's eye creates a scary picture, a catastrophic image, and then your brain and your mind does everything it can to avoid that. It takes you into sort of a mental stream of continuous worrying. It kind of acts as a buffer, or acts as a kind of a distracting wave. Because it's accessing your left brain, sort of leaving the right brain, which is more visual, which sees things instantly, it's more holographic and graphic. Maybe more scary, right? Depends how good your imagination is. And of course, meditation. That's what we're doing. The self-soothing into the 12-petaled lotus of the heart, of which anger is one of these petals. I remember my guru used to say, how real is anger when it's suddenly gone, right? How real was it? It comes and goes. And what's still there, that's more real, right? Oh yes, a t-shirt out of Angels 51, Demons 49. Sure, why not? Let them have their pound of flesh. But meanwhile, angels prevail. So, let's breathe. So meditation in the heart, dropping into love, which we might think of as an emotion, but great saints would argue that love is a flow, not an emotion. It's so much bigger than an emotion that really emotions are kind of lightweight, relatively speaking. I mean, there's a whole circle of them in there. So that's a nice thought, right? Love is a flow. That's Amaji's quote. Love is a flow. Well, speaking of flow, we'll interrupt this bulletin here. I'm going to read you the flow poem I wrote. I like to show up with a poem if I can. Somehow it cuts to the chase, right? It cuts out a lot of excess languaging that's not necessary to relish the gems of truth. So here we go. Essentially, I don't know if this would qualify as great poetry from the point of view of like the New Yorker, but it's a really fun garland of little kind of metaphysical Dr. Seuss aphorisms that I come up with. Mother Earth gives you birth with Sky Father standing by. Release, relax, and restore. There's certainly enough love for sure. Be kind to your mind, and you will find it will be your friend to the end. Afflictions, addictions, constrictions, restrictions, the frictions of contradictions, limitations, inflammations, and degradations. God is you through and through. For you to be you and me to be me, this must be how it has to be. Don't lament, reinvent. Organize your space and feel the grace. Your inner actor is a fractal attractor. Permission to live your vision. Commands from your glands. Release your bubbles of trouble. Do any lies in disguise. Take the licks, but fix the mix. It can come in handy to ask your inner Gandhi. So let's bless instead of digging up the mess. Sneaky, freaky frequency. drop-ins like Mary Poppins. Purposeful process, frictionless flow. We have everything we need to lighten up and glow. Relax the idea that you need all this stuff. Relax the idea that there isn't enough. You're beyond the beyond and a whole lot more. Lean into creation. Relax the ideation. Free your disposition. Let your psyche reposition. Act on the premonition and clear any bad condition. A magnificent equation of bliss radiation. Expand beyond both ends. Your core is forevermore. Peace is stronger than war. Reference the supreme with your inner beam. Stillness clears the illness. Not right or wrong, but weak or strong. Because the best of your life is the rest of your life. So soften your breath, trust, and release. There's the invite, call to action. I'm just gonna relax. Ring the Ganesh bell. There's Ganesh. What is Ganesh, this elephant-faced being? For those of you who have no clue about this, elephants remove obstacles with their trunk. Some people think they look like space beings with a mask, fighter pilots from beyond. Ganesh is a transcendental being. Elephants are perhaps some of the most incredible beings on the planet. So we just request from Ganesh to release us from our affliction. I brought, since we're in the poetic mode today, I took a few verses up from MC Yogi's hip-hop song to Ganesh, and there's about twice as many words to his songs that are here, but I took the ones that seem more relevant to us. I pray to Ganesh to take away the stress and pave the way to the place that's best. Centered in the chest where the breath is felt. When you're blessed by Ganesh, then the stress can melt. The benevolent elephant, so intelligent, at the base of the spine, he's the earth element. Now some may think it's illogical, a myth, or just philosophical, but Ganesh makes everything possible, because elephant power's unstoppable. Paves the path that leads to your soul, and he's known for moving all the obstacles. He destroys all knots that confine the thoughts. He dissolves all walls and breaks the blocks. He unlocks the door to the sacred core. He guards the gate to the pelvic floor. This benevolent elephant, so intelligent, at the base of the spine, he's the earth element. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha Sharanam. Blessings that any afflictions, any problems, money issues, all the problems of this world, may they be gone instantly with our blessings. Thank you, God. Please give us some backup. Sending out the love, so this may benefit more than just us. Let's just breathe, bask in the glow, feel the flow, and then you'll know where to go. Oh-ho. Breathing. Here's a little secret. You put your fingers like this. So different ways to do that. What's going on? You're linking all the nervous systems in the body and balancing the polarity, right? These positive, negative polarities coming together. Create right brain, left brain. Alignment, left body, right body, alignment, mother, father, alignment. Beautiful. clarity. It's no wonder that this is the sign for prayer, right? Because when we're doing this, we're literally balancing our electromagnetic positive electrical charge. Positive electric should be balanced. That's health. That's through water pressure. If you're having a really bad day, everything's going wrong, it's because your negative pressure most likely has drifted into this continuum of attracting negative charge. So it doesn't matter what you do, it's negative, right? And then Michael Jordan on a good night, right? And everything he shoots is in the basket, right? He's in this more alkaline flow continuum where it can't make a mistake. And then somewhere in between is where we regenerate the energy, right? So we're just doing that. At this moment, I'm sitting up straight and tall. It's not always necessary to do that. You can meditate in a more relaxed posture if you're uncomfortable sitting upright. Whatever works is what works. It would be logical to say that pinning your power down, in a sense, with your spine to the earth, it's a really important thing to do, especially when the seas are changing, right? You need this anchor. We need this anchor. So let's focus on that for a minute. The base of the spine, grabbing the center of the earth in an anchor-like fashion. Or if you feel like a monkey, you can wrap your tail around the center of the earth and give it a little tug. Right? Get that monkey brain in alignment. And then it's like a buoy at sea that bobs and has certain equilibration to it. There's ballast, but you can bob in the sea of change, right? And yet you're anchored to the seabed. So just notice this: a flexible spine, flexible mind, long life. Flexibility may be the most key dynamic that we could accomplish in the body and the mind, heart, right? Being flexible, who can argue with that? Sometimes we need to put up stiff resistance, but that's a kind of flexibility, actually, to be able to do that at the right moment, right? Some people meditate very stiffly. They're sort of like, I don't object to that. You want to imitate Lord Shiva up in his cave? I'm more of a flexi beast myself, a water sign. My body seems to like to have a little movement in it. And then when it gets totally absorbed, it will find the natural stillness and absorption on its own. You don't have to force it. So it's okay that your body twitch and do things it needs to do if necessary. That's the Shakti working through the kinks, where there's blocks, right, in this Sushumna channel in the spine. These are called samskaras, these ancient tendencies that still you need to process. So there's a smooth flow of prana shakti, udana shakti, kundalini shakti moving right up the spine, right out the top of the head. Beauteous fountaining flow. And how do we accomplish this? Is to clear all this other resistance in between, right? So let's continue with our solutions. So as the title of yesterday's meditation suggested, that abundance is a huge solution for anger, If someone's really mad at you and you whip out $10,000, how angry are they going to be? Certainly temporarily. And then they want more. Terrorists. But abundance is huge, right? Happiness attracts, right? Joy sets it in motion. Abundance will come knocking on your door if you are already happy. Well, one solution is also let it pass. Don't mess with it. I encountered a very angry person at a gas station once, and this person was coming my way and was like, uh-oh, right? So, and I could see they had a lot of charge and they were one angry human. And so I kind of did the Matador bull thing. I took a dollar bill and I held it as far away from me as I could, and this person came and snatched it. But the momentum carried them past me, and I was able to get into my car and drive away. So sometimes you just have to let it pass, right? Maybe you throw them some abundance. Then of course if you're really angry and you don't know what to do, you can just shut it down in 20 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes. In other words, just be done with it, right? Be really angry and be done with it. Extinguish it. Otherwise, it can fester, as we know. Maybe one of the most important solutions is know when to stop. Now, who couldn't benefit from that? Know when to stop. Know when to live it. It's the language that drives the charge, usually. Someone says something and someone says something, right? It's like, really bad. So then, rasa meditation. This is a little more complex thought. We got a little bit into it at the end of yesterday's meditation, this idea of rasa. And so to put it in a nutshell, there's an addictive flavor to strong emotions. Because when we're having them, we're so consumed by them that we literally become this raging thing, right? And that has a power to it, right? You can influence DNA by screaming at someone loud enough, it turns out, right? That might not work for a lot of things, but that person won't be the same. So the rasa of anger, like, you know, in religious studies, I was a religious studies graduate student for 8 years, and one of the ways people over the years have expressed their relationship to God as the terrifying one, right? It's like God is beyond the beyond. It's like, oh, it's so scary, right? This may be more getting, you know, pre-Christian era, right? It's more angry gods ruled. The God of love seems to be a different equation. But so let's notice this for a minute. That the religions have embedded in us just a variety of images that sort of exist in the periphery of our being. And that could be good or bad depending on your personality type. A fire-driven person might drive their car into the hurt, angry, raging fury thing, right? Because their response triggers them that way, right? They catch fire. Another person's response could be completely, right? A really depressed person could just go commit suicide or just sort of drop off the earth, right? They're more earth and water, right? It's where the air fire might arc into the continuum of anger. The earth water person probably more likely to follow a mental route, worry and anxiety and panic. So it's interesting to me, certainly, that there are these two corridors, right? One is emotional and one is mental, but they're both driven by negative charge. Interesting, isn't it? So let's look at this. which one are you? Like which way do you go if you're upset? Right? Do you just get furious and blow your top? Or do you go into kind of a contracted depression and kind of shut down and, right? Depends on your molecules. So let's just, take a minute. Apply that template to you. You probably don't have to think about it. You already know. But with those thoughts in mind, notice that you have different options. Because usually the healing is the opposite of the problem, right? So if someone's really depressed, you don't necessarily want to use the strategy of meditation necessarily instantly, because it could make them more depressed, right? What they need is stimulation. They need to be able to go for a bike ride or a walk, right? Go to a ball game, watch the World Series, energize differently. Whereas the people who are really wired and fried, right? They need this opposite continuum, right? Something that sedates them, drops them into peace. And they're more the candidate for stillness meditation. But as, in my work as a professional intuitive, I work with a lot of people, they don't meditate. They don't sit quietly for meditation anyway, but they're great meditators, meaning their focus is meta attention, right? Not just some kind of like deep station drop-in, right? They're going into control tower operation, right? They can operate up at 40 hertz. So we all have different capacities. So our responses to our own responses are going to be different, obviously. And so we'll continue with the solutions. Okay, so we got to this, let me back up a little bit. We got to this rasa thought about anger. I just want to make another point that when someone is really furious, there's probably not a thought in their brain. And that's a really interesting thing, because what is in their brain then, right? Either they're a stark raving crazy person, or in the middle of their madness, there's an arrestation of their mind. And then, as we mentioned yesterday, this supreme self has a little space to sort of work itself in, right? There's this more expanded part of you suddenly has a job or has an opening. Whereas before, the lockdown is such that there's just no room for that. So sometimes to be in a state of arrestation, however it's accomplished, whether you're in a state of amazement, you've suddenly seen the hero, hits the perfect hit, that person's face is the baby's face is the cutest thing you ever saw, that joke was so funny you can't stop laughing. These are all moments of where you're gone, your mind is gone on some level. You're just in a state. And so then that brings us back to what the Dalai Lama says. You have to deal with this stuff by cultivating another state. You literally have to go into another state of consciousness than the situation. Not easy to do. But if you've already cultivated it, right? If you're already a master of meditation, and however that works for you, master of self-soothing, a master of beautiful thoughts, the speed with which you can switch into that software is really a testament to your dexterity and flexibility, and kind of even call it astral flexibility, right? Most people are highly rigid with their beliefs, right? With so many things. So let's take a look. How rigid are you? Just kind of look into the landscape. When we get mad, we get more rigid. That's part of the problem. This little that chemical thing that happens, you can't help that, right? So, since you're not mad right now, I'm hoping, let's just notice. What's going on? And there's a rasa of peace, which is the rasa of meditation, ultimately. And this idea that you could take meditation outwardly and drive a car. Buddhists are famous for walking meditation, open-eye meditation. What isn't meditation when you're supremely focused? So that qualifies. I have a lot of clients who, especially guys, they can't sit very still. They're very restless. They would prefer to walk around the block and talk to me on the phone, or walk with me around the block while they discuss their issues. Right? More the kinesthetic personality, right? Athletes. You can usually tell what your learning style is by what you do if someone asks you what your learning style is. And if you suddenly are looking all around, you're probably visual. And if you go, what did he just say? Probably auditory. And if you sort of shift uncomfortably and kind of regroup, you're kinesthetic. And you're probably some combination of those. So I try to make meditation instructions appropriate to each of these types. So let's say for what we're just talking about, so you could visualize light. All right, you could just glow, very visual. But the auditory folks might not work. So listening to the breath might be a stronger suggestion. The hamsa breath, the sa. There's a sound involved in the natural inhalation and exhalation of the breath. So the auditory person is going to clue into that more than their visual. But then the kinesthetic person, they want bliss in their body. Right? So they're feeling all the feelings in the muscles, in the brain, in the heart, in the lungs. And if that's you, actually you might have an advantage in certain ways, because when we practice being present, or we make an effort to be present, that's more what we're doing, right? We're coming into our senses, we're sort of noticing how we feel, we're coming into the body. That's, in a sense, that's step one in the meditation, right? Like, wow, what have we got here today? And then you feel something, and then you think something. And then you can address those dimensions, right? But usually the kinesthetic person might be the best meditator from the starting gate, right? Because they're already like, I'm feeling good. Or someone else like, I'm agitated, right? Their mind needs to quiet down, right? They need, if you're a thinking person, you're probably visual. But it could also be auditory, obviously, but depends on which hemisphere dominates. If you're right-handed, chances are you're more verbal. There's a crossover. And if you're left-handed, you're accessing your right brain more directly. You're more geospatial. And there's right-hand people who activate the geospatial and vice versa. So maybe just notice, how does your configuration work? This is all related to anxiety, anger, frustration, worry. Because in order to escape those avenues, you got to make a left-hand turn, right? Down Peace Avenue here. One way or another. So here we are, Peace Avenue, 0 Point Plaza. Dropping into the infinite energy that exists in the center of your being. then you can turn the rasa of a visual picture of anger into a cartoon. And then you can laugh at it. And that's also one of the technologies for taking scary thoughts, taking something that's really bothering you, you write it down or you pull it away from the situation. It's like you dilute it, right? Reappraise it, rework it. And then it's a different effect. I had a client whose mother was actually a Nazi. And this woman was born during the Dresden bombings and had a very difficult time raising her new child because she was so upset. She didn't feel like she was a good mother. And nobody could figure out that, well, how this 40-year-old, very intelligent, great situation woman was just so falling apart, trying to just cope with their baby. It turned out that when we clued into, oh, your mother was a Nazi, it's like, what does the parent interject here? What is their voice in her ear that's telling her strange things? And it turned out the voice is, oh, you'll never be a good mother. What are you thinking of a baby when you're 40-something, right? So we had to do something with this interject, with this left brain vocalization. So we turned it into a cartoon, put it in a little box, like those little dioramas you make in 4th grade, right? And there she was, the Nazi mother in the diorama box with a volume knob. And this still gave respect to her mother, still allowed her mother to be there, and yet now click when needed, right? So it's like develop an on and off switch. Click. So easy, right? Just cartoon in a box. Okay, actually that solved the problem. The lady no longer had an issue raising her child because we gave her a strategy. So in similar ground, what would be your strategy for taking the scary, catastrophic pictures in your head and recasting them somehow in a new frame, new reference, with a more beneficial outcome? Let's just do it. Just do it. Reframe it. So we'll ring the Ganesh bell. Breathing. Scary pictures becoming cartoons. Probably why political cartoons are so useful to the culture. I want to diminish the edge to the toxicity. And so by making the rasa, by recognizing the rasa of the anger, that anger has a certain role, it has a certain status, that in a sense by appreciating this roaring thing, we accept that aspect of life, that somehow, in a sense, you eat your shadow, that way you accommodate your disowned parts. And if you don't like it that you get angry, well, that could be an issue too, right? Anger has its role. So let's keep going here. So relaxation techniques, ways to program yourself so that in the advent of a situation, you're ready, right? You have something to relax into if you tend to go towards panic. Yesterday we talked about cognitive reframing. We've kind of been doing that in a different way today, right? You take the situation and just think about it differently, and all of a sudden it's either not so bad, or we can catalog it differently. I like this idea. If you don't mind it, it don't matter. That's sort of like, accept it, right? And maybe the most profound tool when someone is furious or you're furious is distraction. Have someone distract that person, or distract yourself, or you distract them. So it's like they went that way. The police, right? So distraction breaks up the cycle of worry, breaks up the cycle of agitation that's escalating, right? You need to break the escalation, get in there and reboot the thing, inhibit that limbic worry drive, essentially, and retrain the emotional circuitry. Now, what do men do? They go for a drive. Uh-oh. And they drink and they take drugs, evidently twice as much as women. And what do women do? They get depressed twice as much as men. And I don't know, whatever they do, eat, whatever you do, whatever we do, eat, shop, whatever, right? So, but it's interesting in the scientific studies that women get twice as depressed and go for different strategies, and men are twice as tweaked in drinking and drugs and driving. The 3 Ds. Men get a D. So, reboot energetically. Well, yes, you could call someone like me, right? Best solution, right? Just neutralize the stuff, just gone. A really interesting one that's been used over the years is electroshock therapy, which I don't think you want to do. But those are for the super extremely beyond help depressed people. This stuff actually works for them because they can't even remember why they're upset after. That's pretty cool. But that's the same thing that's happening in a healing, right? If the healer isn't helping you delete the charge, if you're actually neutralizing the negative charge, that's most likely what it's going to look like afterwards. Like I asked the person, so when you called me, you were really mad at your brother. How do you feel about him now? That's interesting. I can't even find that feeling right now. Excellent, right? Neutralize. That's what you want. Mood altering. Well, that could get into all sorts of strategies that we don't need to get into. Whatever works, right? But it is important from the Dalai Lama point of view, and essentially that's what he's suggesting, not mood altering by taking drugs or going and using chemical strategies, but to mood alter in the sense that get happy, start laughing, go into meditation, go into a different mood. If you love hell, then you're in heaven, kind of thing, right? If you love it, all of a sudden, you're fine. Can you believe it? We're only 1 page in. Okay. Let's meditate so it's not too many words at once. I'm gonna play a little sitar. Okay, so that's a lot of strategies. I'll type some of those up and put them on Facebook. You don't have to write them down. I would say right now, better just imbibe them. Feel them on that deeper level. South of Los Angeles is on fire right now, and so thought we'd all send some water energy. This is the Megaraga. Meg means cloud in Sanskrit. It's the rain raga. Sending rain clouds to Southern Cal. Thank y'all. Beautiful water element. Raga in India is characterized by lightning bolt motion. It's called Vakra, crooked. Just letting this sound wash through. Notice that you might be breathing less oxygen actually now, because the body is so relaxed and settled down, heart beating less times a minute, less oxygen consumption required. It has a wonderfully sedating effect on the mind, drops into the heart. Let's just continue to feel that. It's like a beautiful fallout, right? It's like the fruit of the sound meditation, the fruit of being together for this amount of time. Our blood has run a complete circuit of the body if you've been in this 44-minute time here. Like it's been going longer than 44 minutes, but we've done a complete cycle of the blood together. So where the orchestra acts like an organism, it's like a giant organ exerting a much greater effect on the universe. And we breathe. I'll save the next list of solutions for another time, except there's one. The suggestion is called engineering small triumphs. I love that one. It's like have little victories. Win your own World Series in your kitchen. Then you'll feel fantastic, right? That you are the victor. So I thought, based on the psychic weather, with the planets and the country, all the sort of loggerheads and polarity and so much upset, anger, frustration. What we're looking at here as a group, what's happening out there in the soup. I thought I'd read one more thing. I can find it. There it is. It's called the Declaration of Interdependence. Well, actually, before I read this, I would suggest that write your own version, right? It's really fun, right? You're Thomas Jefferson today. The Declaration of Interdependence. We, the people of this remarkable planet, agree to recognize our essential interdependence and act according to principles of common sense and spiritual resonance so that our children may inherit a world free of war, contamination, and hateful violence. We strive with firm resolve to restore the damage done by 4 industrial revolutions, the damage done by putting profit above people and planet, and the residues of ignorance and unconscious planet management. We align with the self-organizing principles of pure consciousness and the intelligence of photons. Why not? May all beings be blessed by our good works. Thank you, intelligence of the collective, intelligence of the planet, intelligence of the universe. Namaste, namaste, namaste. Okay, so next week my plan was to do part 3 of the Sufi mystical poems, just because they're fun and there's a lightness to that on Monday. And then on Tuesday, I was going to rock out on the election night, because I can't imagine that anyone's brain is going to be thinking about much else. So thought, just it'd be like groove meditation, right? Dance party, photon party on Tuesday, Sufi poetry party on Monday. We've just put up 4 new videos to YouTube, or 3, and then today's will go up. Deanna's was doing just a beautiful job with the artwork, so check that out. YouTube, Sudama Mark Kennedy. There'll be about 26 of these meditations up for every occasion. Namaste, everyone. Huge love. See you next week, or call me in between. Namaste.